In this episode, we talk about a new gene therapy for treating sickle cell disease and thalassaemia. We also talk about Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik's close aide and former IAS officer V K Pandian. But first, we tell you a story about how an alleged murder case got derailed due to mismatched DNA samples. Hi, I am Utsa Sarmin and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. 3 years ago, in January 2020, Sheetal Chaudhary, a 23-year-old woman from Delhi, went missing. Soon after that, a decomposed body was discovered in Uttar Pradesh, identified as Sheetal's. However, earlier this month, more than 3 years later, a DNA test completely changed the case and compelled the police to reopen the investigation. To learn more about this development, we spoke to the Indian Express's Nirbhay Thakur. He began by telling us who Sheetal was.
So basically, Sheetal Chaudhary was a B.Ed graduate from Kurukshetra University in New Ashok Nagar. She used to basically take tuitions in her locality, and her husband, Ankit, he used to work at his uncle's dairy shop in the same locality. So basically, Sheetal and Ankit met because of a common friend in around 2016. And Sheetal and Ankit were supposed to find a match for their common friend, like a romantic match for their common friend, but they ended up falling in love instead. In 2019, around 3 years after they met, they decided to get married. So on October 23rd in 2019, they secretly got married at this temple, Arya Samaj temple in Tisazari.
However, according to the police, Sheetal's parents were against this marriage because Ankit and Sheetal apparently belonged to the same Gotra, that is, the same paternal lineage. In fact, when they first learned about the relationship, Sheetal's parents allegedly beat her up and did not allow her to leave the house. Now, in an attempt to convince her parents to accept the marriage, Sheetal decided to move back to her maternal home a few days after her wedding in October 2019. And this is when things started to become complicated.
So what happened is that in January 2020, Ankit alleged that he tried calling Sheetal constantly, but he couldn't reach her, and he alleged that the last time he spoke to her was on January 18th, and he said that Sheetal's parents did not let him meet Sheetal.
And so, a few weeks later, in February, Ankit filed 2 missing persons complaints, which Nirbhay says are contradictory to each other.
In the first complaint, he stated that Sheetal and Ankit, they both stayed together for a few days after their secret wedding in October 2019, before she went home to convince her parents. And Ankit alleged that her phone was constantly switched off and that his in-laws didn't let him meet her. But in the second complaint, February 16th, Ankit alleged that after Sheetal went back to convince her parents, they regularly spoke on the phone till January 18th, 2020. And Ankit also alleged that Sheetal's parents intentionally kidnapped her and hid her somewhere.
While this was going on in Delhi, the UP police discovered the decomposed body of a woman. It is crucial to note that this discovery occurred before Ankit lodged the complaints and a couple of weeks after he and Sheetal allegedly spoke on the phone, which was on the 18th of January.
On January 30th, 2020, a decomposed female body who was wearing blue lowers and a light blue jersey and had braces was found in a canal near Bulandshahr in UP. So according to the post-mortem report, the cause of the death of the body could not be ascertained.
Now, when the Delhi police got to know about the body from their UP counterparts, they showed Ankit the photo of it along with the clothes for identification.
Ankit then claimed that the clothes that the body is wearing were gifted to Sheetal by him, and therefore the body was Sheetal's body. He claimed that he had gifted the clothes in the bundle to his wife, and he also claimed that Sheetal had braces. However, her parents, who were also shown the photos, they rejected the claim that the body was Sheetal's. And a few days after Ankit confirmed that the body was Sheetal's, the father Ravinder and his wife Suman, along with some relatives, were arrested for criminal conspiracy, murder, among other charges. While the others were released on bail, the father Ravinder, he remained in jail for over 3 years. So according to the charge sheet, the reason for arresting Sheetal's father was basically the Delhi police heavily relied on the father's call detail records and his location near Bulandshahr around the time of Sheetal's murder. So according to his call detail records, it was found that he was basically near the canal where Sheetal was murdered. Sheetal's family rejected this claim. They said that They were opposed to the marriage, but they would never kill their only child. They also rejected Ankit's allegations, and they claimed that they had not seen Sheetal after the marriage.
Despite these claims, Sheetal's father, Ravinder, spent 3 years in jail. However, the case took a complete turn earlier this month when a DNA result showed that the deceased woman was not actually Sheetal.
Basically, the body that was found, body of the deceased person that was found, a DNA sample of her tooth, among other things, and her skin was conducted. So earlier, a DNA test was conducted on using the samples of the deceased body and Ravinder, the father. And the two DNA samples did not match. I think the father's DNA test was conducted in 2020, and after the report came in 2022, the delay was probably because of COVID. That's what we learned, that the results came after a long time because of COVID. And after this, the police collected a sample of Sheetal's mother's DNA to test it against the body of the deceased. This time also, recently, the reports came back and the samples again didn't match. So the mother's DNA and the father's DNA did not match with the body of the deceased.
And Nirbhay says that when he looked at court documents, he saw that there were actually 2 bodies recovered on the same day from the same canal in UP.
And while both bodies underwent autopsies, samples were preserved from only one body. And what happened is the UP police informed the Delhi police about the body. So the Delhi police blamed the UP police of negligence. And the Delhi police said that, well, the UP police had photos of both the bodies. Ankit identified his wife from the photo. And they think that they switched Sheetal's body with the other woman's body, since both were unidentified. And Ravinder's lawyer, Deepak Sharma, also alleged that the Delhi police botched up the murder investigation. The family who saw photos of both the bodies claimed that none of them were Sheetal's.
Now, based on this new information, the Delhi police had to release Ravinder from jail.
The police have said that they will reinvestigate the case since after the DNA mismatch, the father is no longer a prime suspect. They also said that they will call Ankit for questioning since the parents have alleged that they have not seen Sheetal after her wedding. And investigators also said that they will be looking into the 2 somewhat contradictory complaints filed by Ankit in the case.
However, the police are now confronted with a peculiar situation. Since Sheetal's body was not actually Sheetal's, no sample was collected from the second body, and both bodies have been cremated. As a result, there is now no clear victim, accused, or information about Sheetal's whereabouts. And Nirbhay says that's what makes this case particularly unique.
It was all over the papers as an alleged honor killing in 2020. And since at that time, obviously, the DNA reports weren't out, so nobody knew that this was going to happen. Nobody knew that the DNA samples of the deceased body would neither match with the mother nor with the father. And this is a unique case in the sense that we really don't know where Sheetal is. Like, nobody knows where Sheetal is. The husband claims that he hasn't seen her ever since marriage, and he's only spoken to her on the phone till January 2020. The parents, however, claim that they've not seen Sheetal either after the marriage. And now the body of the deceased person is clearly not Sheetal's body, so we don't know where Sheetal is. I think that's what makes this case unique.
And next, we talk about a new therapy for sickle cell disease and thalassaemia. Last week, the UK drug regulator approved a gene therapy as a cure for sickle cell disease and thalassaemia. Both sickle cell and thalassaemia are genetic blood disorders. However, they affect the human body in different ways. When we spoke to the Indian Express's Anonna Dutt, she told us more about these conditions and their prevalence in India.
So, sickle cell disease is a group of diseases basically where the red blood cells and the hemoglobin, which is a protein within the red blood cell which carries the oxygen throughout the body, are misshapen. So usually red blood cells are disc shaped, but people who have sickle cell disease have crescent shaped or a sickle shaped red blood cell, hence the name. And it is estimated that around 30 to 40,000 children in India are born with sickle cell disease every year. And the prevalence is highest among the tribal population. And when it comes to thalassaemia, again, it's a genetic blood disorder which results in fewer hemoglobin, misshapen hemoglobin, which cannot carry enough oxygen. So the people who have this disease have to continue to take regular blood transfusions throughout their lives. And about 1 to 1.5 lakh people live with it in the country.
This new therapy is now being regarded as a groundbreaking milestone in the treatment of individuals afflicted with these two conditions. However, the application of this gene therapy also presents a set of challenges. To know more about this, we speak to Anonna in this segment. So Anonna, can you first tell us why this new gene therapy is being considered a landmark breakthrough cure?
So the UK drug regulator, MHRA, basically approved the first therapy for sickle cell disease and thalassaemia. But the reason why this is considered to be a landmark or a breakthrough is because this is the first licensed therapy using the gene editing technology known as CRISPR-Cas9. So CRISPR-Cas9 won its inventors the Nobel Prize in 2020 because it revolutionized the field of biotechnology and practically is used across research institutes in the world now. This is the technology that has been used by the companies in UK to develop a therapy which basically modifies these hemoglobin cells in the body to ensure that the cells that are produced are not damaged.
Right, and before this therapy was approved, could you tell us how would people suffering from sickle cell and thalassaemia would generally get treated?
So when it comes to thalassemia, there isn't any cure per se. People can get, stem cell bone marrow transplant, basically from a matched donor in the family. Similarly, for sickle cell, they can get bone marrow transplant from someone in the family who doesn't have the disease. So it's quite difficult. And what happens is for thalassemia, the patients continue to need blood transfusions. These blood transfusions also lead to accumulation of iron in the body. And so they also need to have chelation to remove this excess iron, or that results in other side effects. Whereas for sickle cell disease, it can lead to a lot of complications. The main one being these pain crisis, where because the blood flow gets blocked, you feel sudden episodes of pain. Then there is also, you are at a higher risk of infections. You get anemia because of these misshapen cells. So these are all complications of the disease, but this sort of gene editing is likely to cure this, which means that it would be a one-time therapy and that would prevent all these symptoms in people who have thalassemia or sickle cell disease.
Right, and could you tell us how this gene therapy will work and how it will be administered to the patients?
So basically, this therapy targets a gene in the blood cells of the patient called BCL11A. So the name is not important. The function of the gene is to switch from something known as the fetal hemoglobin to adult hemoglobin. And the thing that we know is that the fetal hemoglobin of a person, which is naturally present in children when they are born and is in later in life gets switched to the adult hemoglobin, does not carry these genetic defects like the adult hemoglobin. So what the therapy does is essentially take these stem cells from the blood of the patient, modify them in a lab and re-inject it to populate the bone marrow and form more of these fetal hemoglobin cells, which corrects the defect and thereby relieving the symptoms of the disease. So it is an individual personalized therapy, which means it needs cell from the people, which is then sent to the lab for manufacturing these edited genes and then sent back to the person for infusion.
And Anonna, since this is a new treatment, could you tell us how successful the trials for this therapy have been so far?
So when it comes to the trial, the therapy was used for 45 people with sickle cell disease. And there was an interim analysis at the time of which 29 of these patients qualified. They were in the trial long enough to judge whether the therapy is working or not. Out of the 29 participants for whom the data was seen, 28 people actually never had a severe pain crisis in the last 12 months. This was the data that was used by the UK drug regulator to approve the therapy for sickle cell disease. As for thalassemia, 54 persons were enrolled for the trial. Out of them, 42 were in the trial for 1 year at the time of this interim analysis. 39 of the 42 people who were included did not have any blood transfusions in the last 2 months. And for the rest of the 3 also, the need for transfusion had dropped by 70% after this therapy. So this data was again considered by the drug regulator.
Right, but Anonna, despite showing promising results, we understand that there are challenges when it comes to the application of this gene therapy, especially in a country like India. Could you talk about that aspect?
So one of the biggest challenges with any of the gene-edited therapies such as this is the cost involved. The cost expert estimate could be, upwards of $2 million, which is quite a bit, making it prohibitively expensive for most people. And if you see the prevalence of sickle cell disease and thalassaemia is higher in, say, Asian population or African population, where the purchasing power is also low. So that is going to be a big challenge. Aside from that, for the therapy to work, the cells of the patient have to be harvested by the doctor and then sent to the manufacturing site, which again leads to a significant cost as well as time delay. So it could take up to 6 months for the finished product to come back. So all of this makes it a challenge for the therapy to work in India. But of course, people who are able to afford it will likely would want to get the therapy because it's a one-time cure. Other than that, of course, once the technology is out there are likely to be more innovations to bring down the cost further. Take, for example, at present, there is a research going on in IGIB, which is supported by the government for similar gene therapy for sickle cell disease, which again, if we develop the technology in India and if we have the manufacturing site in India, is likely to bring down the cost.
And in the end, we talk about Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik's close aide and former IS officer V K Pandian. Yesterday, V K Pandian joined the ruling Biju Janata Dal in the presence of Patnaik and other senior party leaders at Naveen Niwas. Though his role and position is yet to be clear, Pandian is likely to be given a position in the Biju Janata Dal next to Patnaik, who continues to be the president of the ruling party since its inception in December 1997. And the BJD insiders had also said that Pandian's role will be crucial for designing the party's campaign plan and candidate selection ahead of the forthcoming Assembly and General elections due in April-May next year. Now, Pandian had served as the private secretary to Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik for approximately 12 years, and he is known for wielding considerable influence within Odisha's corridors of power. Sometime back when we spoke to the Indian Express's Sujit Bishoi, who covers Odisha for the paper, he had said that Pandian was considered the most powerful bureaucrat in the state.
If we could describe him as a person, V K Pandian originally belongs to Tamil Nadu and he is a 2000 batch Odisha cadre IS officer who had started his career as a sub-collector or sub-divisional magistrate in Dharmagad subdivision of Kalahandi district. And then he was served as the collector of Mayurbhanj and Ganjam, which is the home district of Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik. So from during his days in Ganjam, he came to the notice of this Chief Minister, following which he has been elevated to the Chief Minister's office and posted as the private secretary to Odisha CM.
And Shujit had mentioned that the reason behind Pandya's influence is Naveen Patnaik's affinity for bureaucrats in the state.
Unlike other politicians, Naveen Patnaik, if he compared to other politicians or other chief ministers, he depends more on the bureaucrats rather than the politicians. So in that way, Patnaik has had many strings of bureaucrats in his office since he assumed the charge of Odisha's CM in March 2000. But no one has ever enjoyed the clout which V K Pandian today enjoying in the corridors of power.
And according to Shujit, until 2019, Pandian used to be a camera-shy person.
He used to operate from the back office, though he was the brain behind most of the strategies of the state government, behind launching some of the populist measures, but he hardly came to the limelight and he used to operate behind the scenes. But after 29, there was a paradigm shift in his approach. Once known to be a camera shy officer, took a string of camera persons, camera crews along with his district tour. Since March this year, Pandian took district visits, which subsequently triggered confidence. He traveled almost every 147 constituencies in the state using the state chopper. And he used to meet with people, waving hands at the people like the politicians do.
Now, last month, he took a voluntary retirement, and the very next day, he was appointed the chairman of Naveen Odisha and Vision 5T.
So the 5T concept that stands for time, transparency, teamwork, technology leading to transformation. So this concept was introduced basically to overall the administrative apparatus of the state government. So now major schemes of this, almost every department were identified and included under the 5T programs. Then some of the major schemes, some of the top focus projects we can say, like transformation of heritage city Puri into a world-class heritage city, then upgradation of Odisha's oldest medical college, which is SCB Medical College in Cuttack, to AIMS Plus institutions. Then there are redevelopment of several shrines across Odisha. State government is calling it an initiative. It's an idea. And at this moment, 5T has its footprint in almost every department of Odisha government. So basically, we can say Pandian will have his say in almost every department, and he will continue to enjoy that clout which he used to enjoy as an IS officer as well. And the second thing, he was appointed as the chairman of Naveen Odisha. So Naveen Odisha is basically a 4,000 crore schemes meant for rural development schemes. So under which every Gram Panchayat will get at least 50 lakh rupees in the next 2 to 3 months. So this Amo Odisha, Naveen Odisha, which literally means it's our Odisha and new Odisha, which the state government is promoting now. This will be implemented under the direct supervision of V K Pandian. I mean, Naveen Patnaik had appointed several bureaucrats after the retirement as his advisor, as advisors of some departments. But there is a deviation this time in the case of Pandian. Like, he will operate directly under the chief minister. He will report directly to the CM, and there will be no bureaucratic hierarchy for him.
However, Sujit said that this growing influence and power of the former IS officer had attracted criticisms from not only the opposition parties, the BJP and the Congress in Odisha, but also from the ruling BJP.
Well, oppositions were never talking about Pandian's role until this March, until he took chopper rides to the constituencies to review programs or to announce schemes. But yes, after the way Pandian started operating, visiting constituencies, meeting people, holding rallies and announcing schemes from the dais. So after that, both the BJP and Congress started questioning his style of operation, and also they filed a complaint with the DOPT seeking action against him. Even in most of the district, wherever Pandian goes, there was protest organized by both the opposition parties. And not only that, I mean, there were voice of dissent from within the Biju Janata Dal, like senior MLA from Khandapada, Soumya Ranjan Patnaik, who is the editor, who used to the editor of Odisha's largest circulated daily Sambad. He was expelled from the party, though the party explained that it was because of anti-people activities for his involvement in financial fraud. But there is no doubt that action against Patnaik was because of his fallout with Pandian, because Soumya Ranjan Patnaik questions Pandian's chopper ride in his editorials.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. It was written and produced by me, Utsa Sarmin, and Shashank Bhargav. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone who you think will like it and share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.